Hello students, this is Mr. Sims here, and in this video today I am going to just kind of review quickly the highlights of the first three lessons. A video that you can watch before you take the quiz for the first three lessons. So I'm going to begin on page 4 from the lesson 1 problem set and just kind of highlight from lesson 1 what was important. And I'm looking at some of the answers to the problems here. Well, I don't have the answers there, but questions that come up. So if I take a look at number 2, it talks about the quadratic function written in standard form. And standard form is something we talked about in Unit 7 about how the exponents have to increase in order. So when you look at this, you have to look at each term of this quadratic equation, and you look at each one, and the x squared has to come first, and the signs go along with it. So the answer to this would have been 1. Number 3, the leading coefficient is always what goes with the x squared, in this case being 7. Okay? Even though it's not written in standard form, that still would be the leading coefficient because the leading coefficient comes from standard form. All right. Number 4 says, which of the following points lies on the graph? In a problem like this, you just put it in your calculator and you just match the points up. I think that's pretty straightforward. Real quick, I'll just show you clear. So if I just put this in, we've used this table feature quite a few times throughout the course of the year so far. And if you go to the table, you can just match up the points. So if you look at 3, 3 is 4. So it's not 3, negative 2. Negative 2 is negative 1. That would have been the answer. Okay. So other things to follow. Number 6 on page 4, something important from Unit 1. Quadratic function shown below, turning point is 2, negative 4. Where is it decreasing? Well, it's decreasing from here when it is less than 2. So the answer to this would have been 4. All right. Okay. From number 7, what's kind of important here in this case is consider the function, use your calculator to create a graph. Now, obviously, if you're doing this on Schoology, you can't really make a graph. So what I'm going to look at is I really want to talk a little bit about the turning point, the coordinates of the turning point. Is this a minimum or a maximum? And then state the zeros, which are the x-intercepts. So if I just quickly look at, take this function and I go x squared plus 2x minus 3. And we can look at the graph and you can see that it is a minimum point. Okay, but later lesson we talked about how if it was a positive number in front of the x squared, then it was always going to be facing upward anyway. All right. Now, the range of this quadratic function is if you take the minimum point, which is the turning point. Now, remember, you can see the turning point when you go to a table. And what you're looking for is you're looking for this repeated pattern, 5 and 5, 0, 0, negative 3, negative 3, and negative 4. Okay. So, the range is anything that is higher than negative 4, so we'd have to say y is greater than or equal to negative 4 in this case. The zeros of the function, the zeros are where it crosses the x-axis. Now you can look at the graph and you can see that it crosses at negative 3 and it crosses at positive 1. So negative 3 and 1 are considered the zeros of the function. And you can get it from the table as well by looking at negative 3 is 0, outputs are 0. Right? So from that lesson, that was really about it. So if I turn to lesson 2, and in this lesson, we just highlighted how to determine if it opens up or opens down, and that had to do with the fact of this down here. This is the bottom of page 7. But if the number that's in front of the x squared is greater than 0, it's positive, and it opens upward, and it'll have a minimum, a low value minimum. If it's negative, it'll open downward and have a maximum value. And that's all you have to look at is the term that's in front of the x squared. So I gave you another example here. Okay, it would have a maximum. If I look at the assignment, starting on page 8, for number 1, it was 3 because in this form, you know, it has to be negative, so it needs to be facing down, so it's down to these two negatives. And when it's in this form, we'll talk about how if you plug x0 in for x, that's how you find the y-intercept. You put a 0 there, you put a 0 there, you're going to end up with 11, which means it has a positive y-intercept in this case. And just glancing through the rest of this, I don't really see anything else that's super important. There has been a reference to this axis of symmetry, and it's basically where the line goes down the middle of the parabola. It's something that does kind of come up here and there. I haven't seen many questions on the regents lately in regards to that, but you know. Okay, then there was this problem, number 6. I went ahead and graphed it. This is on page 9. If you're following along, you can. If not, you can just kind of just watch as to what's going on here. But you can see the negative in front means it's going down. All right. And then the third lesson, really the point of this lesson was start to look at a different form of a quadratic equation. And it was first brought up in the g of x in exercise 2, where you have the x minus 2 squared and then the minus 4, and how to get the vertex. And checking the assignment from lesson 3, those of you that have completed it, and I haven't gone through the rest of them as of yet, but the biggest thing you have to remember in going through all of this, I'll go right down to the bottom of this page, is that when you find the turning point, okay, the number that's with the x, that's inside the parentheses, that's the sign that changes. That becomes a positive. If it's negative, it becomes a positive. If it's positive, it becomes a negative. And then the second number, the extra number, the constant, is the same. So here are the turning points of each one. 8 and 5, negative 1, negative 4, 3, and negative 10. Okay. Then I gave you this ridiculous one. I said, all right, what if I throw a negative 4.9 out here, and then there was x minus 2.7 squared plus 111. The turning point is the number with the x gets changed to a positive. If it's negative, it becomes a positive. If it's positive, it becomes a negative. 2.7, and then the number at the end. Now, because this is negative in front, the negative 4.9, that means that this is going to be a maximum. It's going to open downward, which means it's going to have a maximum value. All right. So, with that being said, and then here are some of the... With that being said, if you have anything specific that you want to ask in regard before you take the quiz, now remember the quiz is going to be 2 attempts, and you're going to want to do the best you can on the first attempt and the second attempt, and then you get the average of the 2, just like we did our weekly quizzes throughout the course of the year. But if you have anything specific that you want to ask in regards to these 3 lessons, if you request it, send me a message on Schoology, and I can do a Google Meet with you, where I can actually, I can send you a link, and then you can join me, and you can see me live, and you can ask the question, and I can go over that with you. Just real quick, I was just going to look over. Can't think if there's anything else, but as I said, if you're not very confident and you want to ask me, just go ahead and send me a message, like I said, and I can go over any problems that you want me to go over with you. Also, if I'm looking at, after everyone has submitted the first attempt on the quiz, I'm thinking about posting another video where I'll give you hints. I may not give you the answers, but at least give you hints, kind of like what I used to do for your warm-ups. All right, well, I guess that's it. So this is Mr. Sims signing off.